Welcome to Bloomberg Markets. I'm Vonnie Quinn. Traders are favouring bets that the Fed will go big tomorrow with a half-point cut, undeterred by retail sales data. Let's get a quick check on where we're standing markets-wise, because we were seeing nice gains for the major indices. Right now, though, the S&P 500 is hitting its session low for the day. Bear in mind, we're looking for a 39th record. If we get a record close today, it would have to be above 5667. We did hit an intraday high today, so it may happen. As you can see, the Russell 2000 is also advancing, much more so than the S&P 500. And then we are seeing a little bit of movement in treasuries as well after the retail sales data didn't particularly surprise. A 5 basis point move for the 2-year yield, obviously more sensitive to what the Fed is going to do tomorrow. And then gold futures as well off their highs. But as you can see, we're very close to a record still for gold as well. So let's get to some of those midday movers on the equity side. Let's bring in Bloomberg Markets correspondent Abigail Doolittle.
And first, Bonnie, let's set the tone by taking a look at those retail sales that you were mentioning. Initially, stocks really liking it. The S&P 500 sharply higher. The Nasdaq had been higher. The Nasdaq 100 recently just reversed a little bit lower. But relative to the retail sales, despite worries about the economy, a bifurcated consumer, you can see that on a month-over-month basis, the survey had been for a small decline. It actually came in up 0.1%. Ex auto and gas, it was a little bit lighter than expected. And then the retail sales control group, the one that's used for GDP, plus 0.3%. Net better than what had been expected in terms of a healthy consumer. As for stocks, this is somewhat of a retail stock that we're going to be taking a look at. Not exactly, but Walgreens, it is retail, but just not the way people usually think about it. The reason it's up 2.5% doesn't really have so much to do with retail. It has to do with the fact that they finally settled a lawsuit, a class action by customers who said that the pharmacy chain overcharged for generic drugs. This really started back in 2018, so 6 years later, those customers are winning, and investors apparently like the fact that the overhang is coming off the stock. As for two big tech stocks that are higher, let's see if they're as high as they had been, because NVIDIA is one stock that has actually flipped lower, but Intel, a really nice gain off of the highs, but nonetheless still up 5.1%. They, of course, yesterday received the ability to go to produce 3 billion worth of chips for the U.S. military. And then today, they've won Amazon's AWS as a customer. They are going to co-invest in a chip around AI. It's being called a fabric chip. Investors seeming to like that both for Intel and Amazon. Bonnie, despite the fact that NVIDIA has weakened a little bit and Apple is down, well, you see both of these big tech stocks still higher.
Long day still to go, Abigail, so we may see another reversal. It's Abigail Doolittle. Thank you for that. Much appreciated. Boeing, not moving too much at the moment, but investors are looking to see the outcome of today's scheduled talks between the union representing 33,000 Boeing employees and the embattled company. For more on this developing story, we're joined by Bloomberg reporter Julie Johnson, who's been covering the strikes. So, Julie, what do we anticipate out of today's mediation round?
Well, this is the two sides heading back to the table. I wouldn't expect any bombshells anytime soon. This is just restarting the process and trying to reach some sort of agreement around that will satisfy Boeing's striking workers, and that's a big one.
RBC Capital Markets says Boeing will burn about $500 million a day for each day that workers are on the picket lines. How far can it go? How much can it sort of, put aside for a strike, or does it need to come to some kind of an agreement with its workers?
Well, now that's going to be really interesting. I've seen estimates also as low as 100 million. So it's a little bit unknown right now in terms of the financial hit to Boeing. But they absolutely have to come to some sort of agreement. And on the other side, you have union members who have leverage for the first time, maybe in their lifetimes, to go in and really get a good deal. And I think they are going to squeeze hard.
How good are these union leaders at this particular union? I mean, we saw a raft of confidence in unions over the last couple of years, much more confidence and leadership and so on. This particular union, the IAM, I believe it's the 751 chapter. Who are its leaders, and are they good at negotiating, Julie?
Well, we'll find out. The talks are being led by John Holden, who's the district president for IAM 751, and he was definitely seen as a rising star for labor heading into all of this. Now, he struck a deal with Boeing, a tentative agreement that would have put the pay raise in the realm of what UAW got from the automakers last year. And the union came out with a strong statement urging people to accept the deal, and I quite frankly misread the room. It was voted down by just a resounding percentage. 96% of the union members voted to strike, which is unprecedented. So it's a little bit interesting here, where you've got, I think, a pragmatic union leader and a very activist base.
Julie, do you have any idea from the workers how long they would be willing to strike for if Boeing's hands are tied and it just lets the strike go on and on and on?
Well, the history with this union is for 2-month strikes have been the average over the last in recent memory. So there is some history here. Every strike is a different animal, people will tell you. And so you don't want to read too much into the past as sort of a prelude to the future. But people seem very determined right now to dig in. I just wouldn't expect, like some sort of miracle compromise to come out of these talks this week. It could be a while.
That's for sure. Julie, thank you so much. You'll be keeping us up to date. That's Bloomberg's Julie Johnson. And as we were saying, not too much volatility in Boeing stock today, up about 1/3%. Turning now to a Bloomberg exclusive. The US Justice Department is ramping up scrutiny of banks that collectively lost billions of dollars in the collapse of Bill Hwang's investment firm, Archegos. This just months after actually scoring that conviction, or those convictions, against Hwang himself for deceiving those very firms. So Credit Suisse, Nomura Holdings, UBS, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Deutsche Bank, they all faced Archegos exposure, though it's unclear which, if any really, of these firms will face charges. For more on this, we're joined by Bloomberg's Sridhar Natarajan, who broke the story. So Sridhar, the claim was made that these banks were pretty innocent in this whole thing and that Bill Hwang just pulled the cover over all of these banks' eyes. That's not now what the Justice Department is saying.
I would arguably say that maybe they didn't make the claim that the banks were pretty innocent, because we had the Manhattan attorney, Damien Williams, even a couple of years back when he was talking to Bloomberg, mentioned the fact that nothing in the allegations against Archegos was supposed to absolve the other institutions. Having said that, there is some irony in the fact, and you were down there in downtown Manhattan just a few months ago when Bill Hwang was convicted for lying to these banks, for deceiving these banks. So just mere months after that, 3 or 4 months after that, you have the same agency, the Justice Department, going after the banks now. Of course, this is another part of the Justice Department. This is the antitrust group. It is out of their San Francisco office, but it is a criminal probe. And what they're trying to find out is if the banks colluded or conspired to collude in how they unwound the bets, specifically looking at all those emergency talks they had in that final week of Archegos when that portfolio was pretty much set on fire.
Yeah, because it was literally hours. Remember the testimony that we heard at the trial? Why can't they just pull up the logs?
I mean, there is no doubting the fact that the banks did have these conversations. The banks were trying to figure out a resolution. They were trying to figure out if they could enter a standstill agreement. Some banks, Credit Suisse, UBS, and Nomura, actually managed to sign a managed liquidation agreement where they sold off some of their overlapping positions in a coordinated fashion. Now, the Justice Department is perhaps trying to make the case, especially if it's the antitrust office, that could amount to collusion. You were trying to make sure, in trying to avoid your extent of losses, were you artificially trying to keep the price of those stocks higher? Maybe the natural price of those stocks, absent Bill Hwang's massive bets, was much lower than where it was supposed to be. I will confess right off the bat that this isn't something we've seen often in the industry. Well, take another step back. We haven't seen an implosion of a family office like that. The Bill Hwang case stands by itself. But even in that, to go after the banks over this theory does feel a little novel. The DOJ antitrust office certainly feels like they probably have seen enough that amounts to them that there could be a real case here. but will they actually be able to bring a successful case? That could still be far away.
And we're talking about the Sherman Act, right? It's not something that's really been used in a situation like this before. So they must have something that, as you say, they feel they can pin it on. Would it be a jury that would decide? Would it be, how would this go? I mean, for Bill Hwang, certainly it was a jury. And then how would the banks be penalised if there were to be a win on the Department of Justice?
Again, it's absolutely too early to tell. But when we first heard about a probe like this, we didn't realize it was a criminal probe. It was in the immediate months after the collapse of Archegos. So we're talking about June 2021. But there was also this sense in the fog of war, all regulators, prosecutors are trying to figure out if there was wrongdoing and where all could they find wrongdoing. But after we saw the case lodged against Bill Hwang, the assumption was this case would have probably gone away. But that doesn't seem to have been the case. It was merely dormant while that case in the SDNY was going on. Now that's out of the way. The DOJ is ratcheting up this antitrust probe. How it will ultimately play out, we don't know. Whether they will bring a case, whether there will be a settlement. What we do know is this antitrust office and the general antitrust posture under this Biden administration has been fairly muscular. They are loath to make any settlements, and they're out there trying to score points and make it clear that if they feel that there is some level of wrongdoing that comes under their jurisdiction, they will go after it hard.
It is just a pile of nettles, this whole case, right? Sri, thank you so much. That is Sri Natarajan who broke that story. Coming up, Intel revealing a number of plans that could mark the beginning of a comeback. We'll bring you details next. This is Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Markets. I'm Vonnie Quinn. Time now for our stock of the hour, and today we're looking at Intel. Intel shares surging for the second straight day after it made a batch of announcements spurring optimism. A turnaround plan is starting to gain traction. Among those announcements, a multi-billion-dollar deal with Amazon Web Services to co-invest in a custom AI semiconductor, U.S. government funding to make chips for the military, and a spin-off chip foundry business. A ton of announcements to cover. For more, let's bring in Kunjan Shabani with Bloomberg Intelligence, who comes to us in Washington, D.C. So it's been this drip, drip, drip of announcements, Kunjan. Is this planned on the part of Intel? Is this a big PR campaign?
Yeah, there was a lot of announcements, and we can break it down with starting with the most important one, which was the AWS win on the Intel 18A process. We had heard them locking in Microsoft early in the year. So a second big customer announcement here really validates and endorses their Intel 18A capabilities, which is really the North Star of this foundry business turnaround story.
Explain to us what a fabric semiconductor is.
Well, when you think about an AI server, right, it could be an interconnect technology. It could be something like a DPU, or basically chips that are used for interconnection and networking. We don't have a lot more color on exactly the chip it is, but nevertheless, it's still a big win.
These cost-saving measures that we're also seeing, scrapping factories, for example, in Poland and in Germany, is that consistent with the idea of ramping up elsewhere in the business?
Well, no, so Intel is dealing with two difficult things right now, right? They have a very ambitious, aggressive foundry transformation goals, which needs significant spending year after year, which they need to support by generating cash from their product, which has seen pause and slow down in the growth. So they're not generating enough cash to continue fueling this transformation. So from an investor perspective, these delays or postponements are good because they will help reduce the cash burn. They already announced last quarter that they're going to reduce their gross and net capex than what they had planned before. And these subsidy awards and co-investments from customers and investors help them continue, even though at a slower pace, but continue to build on the foundry ambition.
Kunjan, when this is all effectuated and done, who will be Intel's peers at that point?
Well, they're shooting for the most advanced leading edge nodes. So from a foundry perspective, it's really TSMC and Samsung, two other foundry manufacturers trying to reach that goal. From the product side of the business, the peer landscape would not change significantly.
What happened, Kunjan? I mean, will Intel still be the powerhouse when it's done all of this that we once knew and loved it as? Will it be the leading edge provider of certain chips and so on? Will it have the confidence of customers, never mind investors?
I mean, wins like this, if we see them happening much more frequently, should definitely boost the confidence. Again, from a fundamental perspective, I think the challenges in their product division, slowing growth, slowing profitability, are expected to stay at least for a year or so. So we don't expect an immediate turnaround there. But again, any help, whether it's through liquidity, through awards or investments, and slowing down CapEx on the foundry side, as well as at the same time locking in more customers, should definitely help that foundry roadmap.
Just briefly, Kunjan, what should we expect to hear next? There'll have to be another announcement soon, right?
Well, I hope so, and a positive one, I hope so.
Kunjan, thank you so much for joining us. That is Kunjan Chamani with Bloomberg Intelligence out of Washington, D.C. Coming up, a one-on-one conversation with Bill Gates on a range of issues, including how AI can play a role in understanding the human immune system and development of vaccines. Highlights from that interview next. This is Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Markets. I'm Vonnie Quinn. The 2024 Goalkeepers Report from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation found the worst child health crisis is malnutrition and its economic impact. Bloomberg TV's Caroline Hyde spoke recently with Bill Gates about the details. For more now, let's bring in Caroline. We'll hear from Bill Gates himself in your interview in a moment, Caroline. But what stood out to you as sort of the deepest impacts of what they're trying to do?
The cost, the economic cost here. $3 trillion. We talk about companies and video being worth $3 trillion. The global economic impact of malnutrition, and the fact that we're even talking about malnutrition in this day and age, but the impact of that being $3 trillion. Why? Because it impacts not just the ability for children to grow, but mental capacity. It forces countries, particularly African nations, into poverty traps where they cannot escape it. And ultimately, we're talking to the man we associate with technological innovation. It doesn't take technological innovation, much of it, to make malnutrition a thing of the past. It means bullion cubes that are a little bit more fortified. It means prenatal vitamins. It means more productive cows. But let's just hear a little bit more about how AI and innovation can help.
Malnutrition, in some ways, is such a basic thing. So we do need to raise money to get resources for this, so that the poor countries, get out of the poverty trap and then are self-sufficient. The innovation is going to accelerate. Tools like AI are helping us understand the gut, the immune system, how to design vaccines in a very deep way. And the key thing that the foundation has with innovation is making sure it's not just helping the rich countries, but it's helping the poorest. And so, can they get medical advice in their native language on their cell phone? Can they have the diseases that are so ignored, like malaria? Can we use AI to develop ways to not only reduce that, but eventually eradicate it? And so, that's where the foundation is, looking at the innovation and making sure that it's benefiting those most in need.
The foundation talking with global leaders often, I'm sure, global leaders of wealthy developed nations who are preoccupied right now with their own political instabilities, their own worries about the cost of living. Will you get the help you need from developed nations, do you think?
No, that's a very good question. The dream is that even in the face of huge budgetary challenges that all countries have, that they would be willing to have 1% to 2% that go to help the poorest, to help these countries move forward. And these are things where you're saving a life for less than $1,000 per life saved. So, very catalytic, very well measured. I wouldn't be putting my money in unless I knew that it was extremely well spent. And so we're trying to keep this on the agenda to continue that miracle that took place, where we made so much progress getting rid of childhood death.
You talk of that miracle, and I've got to ask you, as someone who, almost sees us taking those steps ahead, and then it feels as though something gets in the way. call it a war, call it a global epidemic, and we take what feels like 2 steps back. Do you ever just lose confidence? Do you ever feel that this is a fight that can't be won?
Well, I will say that when we set the current goals, the United Nations, which are called the Sustainable Development Goals, we didn't anticipate a pandemic. We didn't anticipate the financial difficulties that the African countries would find themselves in, paying more in interest than they can for health and education. And we didn't anticipate the wars that have broken out, both Ukraine and several others, including the Middle East. And so the goals we set for 2030, you look back and, it feels a bit naive, but, every life saved really counts. Here we're talking about millions of lives. We're talking about making these countries stable, having health systems so that if a potential pandemic's getting started, they can stop it before it spreads globally. So not only the moral benefits, but the global benefits are pretty strong. And yes, it's harder today than it was a few years ago to get through the noise level, to get this cause to be heard. But, because it's, it's about helping other humans, I think we'll succeed.
Bill Gates of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation talking about malnutrition. Bonnie.
And you can see all of that interview on Bloomberg.com. Our thanks to Bloomberg's Carolyn Hyde. I'm Bonnie Quinn. That does it for Bloomberg Markets, with the S&P 500 now in negative territory along with the Dow. The Nasdaq still positive. This is Bloomberg.